80% of employees and executives cite lack of collaboration or ineffective communication for workplace failures. This means a lack of soft skills. And what are soft skills? How are they different from hard skills? Hello, my name is Kirti Sankhala and welcome to Science Craft with Kirti. To discuss with this very important topic, I have with me today a very special guest who is more vocal and equally enthusiastic woman scientist, Dr. Yashoda Chandorkar. Yashoda is a Marie Curie Co-Fund Fellow at EMPA, Switzerland. EMPA is a part of ETH domain, and before that, she worked in Germany at two different research centers, at Lebanese Institute for Interactive Materials and at RWTH Aachen. Yashoda holds a PhD degree from IISc, Indian Institute of Sciences in Bangalore, in chemical sciences. So, besides many academic accomplishments, she advocates for women in science, and for this, she co-initiated a peer program called Stepping Up the Ladder as a part of the Fix the Leaky Pipeline initiative of the ETH domain. Today, we will dwell upon importance of soft skills, especially for women scientists.
Thanks, Kirti, for having me here. It's really my pleasure.
Thank you, Yashoda, for joining in. Yashoda, so we have this very interesting topic, and but before dwelling upon in deep, I would ask you a very basic question. What is soft skill, and why are they increasingly becoming important?
Yes, if you Google soft skills, it shows up that soft skills are personal attributes that enable somebody to interact effectively and harmoniously with other people. Personally, I think soft skills are what we all possess ourselves, and we are also good at if we are not scared to be ourselves. So soft skills are not so tangible as hard skills, and it's not something which you can binge learn, if you know what I mean. So for instance, if you think of a hard skill like driving, you take driving lessons, you clear a driving test, and then you are good at driving. Soft skills don't work like that, but at the same time, they're something which anybody can learn, and this just takes practice. So some people might be good at it, but it's possible for everybody to learn and to improve soft skills. So I think that's the main part, that it's something which we need to be open to make mistakes, to accept mistakes, and to improve.
Interesting. Recently there have been an increasing number of Indian origin CEOs in the global list, and that also include women CEOs, especially like for Chanel or for Flex. And there have been an increasing discussion that what makes Indian origin CEOs special. And it was pointed out, or many people cited that probably the soft skills are the game changers, especially because of our humble upbringing. So, seeing the soft skills in the context for women scientists, so what do you think that why they are important for women in science and how they can learn them?
Soft skills, I think, are important in general for communication. And in science, everybody needs to communicate. So as researchers, we need to communicate with other fellow researchers who can be female or male researchers. We need to communicate with the general public, and we need to communicate with students, with stakeholders. So of course, this is smoother with soft skills. And in particular for women, I think soft skills are important in a field like science. And I would say that this has a historical perspective as well, because women in science are typically quite new, and we are still trying to enter into the field of science. So most of the times we are dealing with male colleagues, and this is something which may not come naturally. It's easier for women to interact with women, and interacting with men takes some practice and some soft skill development. And it's also true vice versa. It's also important that our male colleagues also develop soft skills to interact with women in the workplace, especially in STEM fields.
Yeah, that is, yeah, you really pointed a very important point, because I can remember that since I come really from a traditional cultural family, so it was not really in a part of our culture that we talk with men in or unknown men in general. So when I went to like NIT Jaipur, and it was like the National Institute, and I was in this co-educational institute, and it was the hardest time for me because I was not comfortable talking with boys or with professors, and I felt the lack of confidence in me. But somehow I overcome that. But sharing some more personal experiences, I would also say that that I still feel that soft skills, if I would have learned certain soft skills at an earlier stage, then I would have handled much better, which I can handle nowadays. For example, like many times, many people were very rude to me, or still many people are rude to me. But before, I didn't know how to handle it. But nowadays, I can simply say, well, you are inappropriate, and I cannot tolerate it, and surprisingly it works. So I would request you, like, if you could share any of your experience, that how your soft skills developed or how it helped you.
Oh, thanks for sharing your nice experience, Kirti. It's really inspiring. And I think your situation and your experience also tells the importance of communicating also about your boundaries and about how you would like people to behave with you, which I think is a very important aspect of soft skills. So I can share a very common situation which I faced myself recently, and also I think many of us face in the workplace all the time. So, this is a situation where we feel that we are not given the due credit or the due acknowledgement for what we have put in. And many times it's not a very simple black and white situation. So we cannot just say, hey, give me the credit I deserve. And it's much more nuanced. So how do we get the support that we need to reach or to reach out to people to deal with such a situation? In my case, I found that there were three things which were really helpful for me, and most of them involved talking with people and getting to know their opinions and how they would have handled the situation. The three groups that I'm talking about, the first one is about role models. So usually it's not possible for you to discuss with role models, but what helped me was to read about such women who had to face similar situations in the workplace and find out how they handled it and how they tackled it. And this was not only very inspiring, but it also gives you a nice understanding of the situation in general. The second group of people, which I think really helps, is by talking to your mentors. And this is something which I would really recommend because they bring in a very different perspective. Also, because many of them have been through similar situations themselves and they offer some advice. They might be able to offer it, and they might also just have some suggestions about human behavior since they have been in the field much longer than what we have. And the third group of people I think is very interesting, and this is the peer group. So I think forming a peer group to discuss your situations and your circumstances, the difficulties which you face, is really helpful. And it's amazing how much we can learn from our colleagues and from our peers. So what was helpful in my case was forming a peer group of people who are of especially of women who are in a similar stage of career and who are from different diverse fields, not necessarily very close to my workplace. And I think this is quite important because it gives a certain objectivity to your situation, and they bring in a fresh point of view which is not tainted by biases. So, in such a case, I think what's helpful is if women or the peers discuss their cases or the particular situation that they are facing, and then the others try to step in the shoes of this particular person and try to imagine and tell what they would do if they were in such a situation. So what happens in this interaction is that we'll get to learn a lot about different situations that we might face, and of course get very new nice ideas about how we can tackle a situation. So in general, I think the let's say the bottom line is that it's really helpful to discuss with people whom you trust and you can talk to. You have a safe space with them, and of course what's really important here is that you're sure that confidentiality will be maintained.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly the like a very important message, and I personally feel that it was also very important, mm, like requirement, something like that, during my PhD. So there was a time that I was feeling quite faded in my goals, and during PhD, and I was looking for mentor, and luckily, I found one in a very experienced German professor and who spent a lot of his time on me. And of course, I thank him. But I would also add that I had to find out for a mentor, and it was important. It helped me to get through the phase. But somehow I missed also female mentor. And I would add that having a female mentor would help it better, and so, what is your take on that?
I completely agree, because most of the times, also what I said earlier, it's easier for women to communicate with women just because it has less barriers, I think, in the workplace. And taking this into account, I think having female mentors who have this same, let's say, who can understand our situation better is helpful. But this doesn't mean that we shouldn't have male mentors, because men also have a really nice perspective and there's lots to learn from them.
Yeah, exactly. They do have, but you know, it's our inner thing that certain things we are not comfortable sharing with the male mentor. So that was like one reason I was lacking a female mentor. But yeah, luckily now my postdoc supervisor is female, and I feel more comfortable discussing many things with her. So
Nice.
coming to the next point, you know, many times yeah, for example, even if we are searching for a mentor or like in general, in any conversation or in meetings or when we are writing an email, we need to talk about ourselves. So how should we really introduce ourselves effectively?
Oh, wow. So, yes, this is quite important, because many times it can be quite daunting to approach a person whom you've never met before and introduce yourself. And of course, it gets better with practice. But recently, I came across this concept which can help one in introducing yourself to a new person whom you haven't met before, or even to a person who knows you. And it's the concept of pause, like pause, cat pause or dog pause, PAWS. Yes, and it stands. So it's an acronym. The P stands for profile. So you begin with your profile, and you move on to A for academics, and then you explain your work experience, and then the skills and the expertise that you have. And all this is recommended to be done in a time span of about not more than 90 seconds. So real quick. And I would like to add that what's important is that you do this really confidently, and you shouldn't be shy to talk about your achievements, shouldn't try to undermine or downplay them, or at the same time hype them.
Yeah, that's important, not hype them. Yeah, but yeah, pause is really a smart suggestion. I would say it's brief and it's very informative and it's cute. So
Yes.
so yeah, coming to next, you know, like while introducing ourselves, sometimes we do make mistakes. Sometimes we end up doing goof ups. So, if we are in that situation, like it's already messed up, how should we tackle that situation?
Well, I think it's a good point, because we all make mistakes, And soft skills can just help us handle our mistakes better. I can give an example here. So many times we have to call a group of people. For example, if you want to buy something, you call two or three people, and they can be competitors of each other. So what happened to me was that I was trying to call somebody, and I mistook this person for his competitor, and I assumed this, and I was talking. So, and then when I learned this, I panicked and I freaked out a little bit, but then I had to think and say to myself that it's fine. And it really worked, because of course I apologized, and the person on the other end was fine, because they also understand that it's not so strange that it happens. A very common goof up is also that when you're applying for jobs, sometimes you exchange the names of the person you're addressing the email to, and then it just happens. So I think the important part here is to accept your mistake and to say sorry and move ahead, because this is something everybody does, making mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. As they say that perfection or perfectionism is not human, but mistakes are. And this gives not only me, but I think also the audience the hope that mistakes do not end career, and in general they should not end the careers.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So talking about soft skills further, what are the key factors that are important for women scientists or women in STEM fields?
So, like I mentioned, historically, since women are new to the STEM field, I think what many of us lack is confidence and belief in ourselves and in our capabilities. So, most of us are shy, and we
Yeah.
hesitate to talk about ourselves or about our achievements. And at the workplace, this often is to our disadvantage. So I would say that confidence is a very important factor. And I just like this quote from the Nobel laureate Donna Strickland, who said that a female scientist should be nothing special. She's just a scientist. So that's what we should also think of ourselves, not as somebody different or special, but just someone who wants to work because we like the work. The second factor, which I think is very important for especially for women in science, is that we learn from others' mistakes. And for a field like science, I think this is quite natural, because we do research and then we learn what doesn't work and what works. So I think we just need to borrow this concept to the field of communication and soft skills, where we need to be open to learn from our peers, our mentors, and our role models, who will share how they handle difficult situations and learn from their experience. So soft skills are also about adapting ourselves to what the situation demands of us, and that's why they need to also take other things into consideration, such as whom you're dealing with, what is the mood of the room and the situation, and how can you change and adapt to make sure that you have an effective communication. So in the end, I would just say that it's about being open, being transparent, being honest and fair to ourselves as well as to others.
Exactly, wow. So finally, I would add that women in science do need to practice soft skill on their own by themselves, but at the institutional levels, we must be strategic to develop the soft skills in order to come closer to bridging the gap between intentions and actions in supporting women in science and beyond. So, thank you very much, Yashoda, for joining me for this very interesting discussion. And it's really a very important topic, as we know that even we are learning at postdoctoral level. So I think many are trying to learn this and get better at it. So thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks, Kirti, and I really appreciate your initiative and I wish you good luck.
Thank you.